all, welcome to Fox 10 News Now. I'm Kinsey here. I'm seeing a live event coming in. Let's peek and see if we can figure out what it is. But I don't hear much sound either. I wanted to go over what we learned so far today out of Los Angeles, California. After-school programs. This is just half an hour ago. We learned that the after-school programs were canceled. That includes sports clubs and community access to those facilities are going to be unavailable. They did say 3 hours ago that schools would not reopen today. Here, let's see. I'm going to try to figure out what this event is. But unless I find out, I've got a few of the press conferences that I wanted to go over with you so we could watch how it all unfolded this morning. It started bright and early and happened at a pretty fast pace. I believe I just read 13 agencies. Let me find it here. 13 different law enforcement agencies are involved in the school walkthroughs right now. No schools have been cleared. So that is we know that it's the Los Angeles Police Department as well as the FBI. Give me 2 seconds to type to a coworker and see if they have any idea what we've got going on over here on this satellite feed. I was looking at President Obama's schedule, and I don't believe I saw anything this afternoon, so I don't believe it's him unless something else is developed. All right, until I get information on that, let's revisit the Los Angeles school threat from earlier today. These are not live press conferences, just to reiterate. These are... I'm going to show you two. One from about 8:30 this morning, or 8:15, that's Los Angeles. It was about 7:15, early in the morning for LA. And then I'm going to show you one that we saw a few hours after the initial press conference. And that one we don't get much new information, but they stress how important this was, and they stress how they made the right decision in the way they handled it. So I don't know if they were receiving a lot of criticism and that was their way of reacting to it, but here's the first press conference from this morning, and I'll show you the second press conference where we hear from a lot more people, but again, the tone and the message seem to be more justifying what they did. And then also there was a hoax out of New York where someone called in a false threat, and I have a few minutes of the mayor discussing that I can show you, and we'll jump into that right now.
So I've asked that they be closed also. I think it is important that I take the precaution based on what has happened recently and what has happened in the past. I have asked the chief to be working with the city police department and the sheriff before the day is over, I want every school searched to make sure that it is safe for children and safe for staff to be there on Wednesday. I will issue a statement late this afternoon after the Chief Zipperman has informed me that schools have been searched and it is okay. I will keep you informed ongoing during the day if there are any situations. One of the issues I've been worried about is children who walk to school. We have a great many of those, and so I've asked the principals to make sure that those children are at a specific gate so they can be given instructions, kept together, and so that we can make contact with parents to pick up their children or to make sure that they get home safely. Not independently, home safely, making sure that their parents are notified. We have sent a Connect Ed to all parents, letting them know of the action I've taken. I will answer some questions after the Chief and the Board President speak with you. Chief?
Superintendent, before, could you start just for the beginning with a couple of people arrived late?
Chief?
Good morning. Steve Zipperman, the Chief of Los Angeles School Police Department. And I just want to reiterate what Superintendent Cortines already stated. Earlier this morning, we did receive an electronic threat that mentioned the safety of our schools. As a result of that threat, not only Los Angeles School Police Department.
Can you start again, sir?
Excuse me?
Can you start again? We've got people in the middle here.
I'm going to continue on that as a result of that threat, the Los Angeles School Police Department, as well as Los Angeles Police Department and the FBI were notified, and right now the threat is still being analyzed. In an abundance of caution, as Superintendent Cortines has indicated, we have chosen to close our schools today until we can be absolutely sure that our campuses are safe. And until it is deemed safe by law enforcement and concurred with our district officials, which we believe will be able to occur by the end of this day, we will keep those schools closed. The investigation is ongoing. I'm not going to get into the details. I do want to say this is important, that the threat that was received as far as the LA Unified School District is concerned pertained to the LA Unified School District. I know there's been many calls. I can tell you that we know of no other threats that we're aware of, unless other agencies have gotten in specific outside of LAUSD, that this pertains to the threats that we got to our schools only. We do not know any other information about any other threats within the county region at this time. As I indicated, law enforcement will continue to evaluate the threats.
Chief, would you introduce the Chief?
Yeah. I would like to introduce Assistant Chief Jorge Villegas, and he is the Assistant Chief from LAPD in charge of Office of Operations. Chief Villegas.
Can we switch seats? Maybe we need to get near the microphones.
We'll just take your mic off. We're just leaving
On the chair.
Good morning. I'm George Villegas, George-Villegas. I'm an assistant chief of the LAPD and chief of operations. As was mentioned earlier, the school district received a safety threat that we're in the process now of validating or vetting to determine what, if any, validity it has. As you can imagine, we take all threats seriously. Nothing is more important to us than the safety of our kids, especially those that are coming to and from school that haven't been notified yet of this the safety threat. We're doing everything we can to ensure that we conduct a thorough investigation into that threat, and we'll be working with the school district as well as with the FBI to ensure that the public is informed as much as we can provide, as soon as we can provide it.
Introduce the board president.
This is Steve Zimmer. He's the president of the Los Angeles Board of Education.
You go over one more.
I'll go over.
Sorry.
How about we stand up? That was musical chairs.
Sorry, Billy.
Sorry, guys.
If you had a podium, we would.
Good morning. My name is Steve Zimmer. I'm the president of the school board of the Los Angeles Unified School District. I'd like to speak, if I could, directly to families and employees. We are taking this action in an abundance of caution to make sure that every child in LA Unified School District and every employee is absolutely safe. Right now, we ask parents and families, if you have not yet sent your children to school, please do not send them to school. If they have already been dropped off, we will have families meet their children at the reunion gates of all schools. I want to be very clear. We need the cooperation of the whole of Los Angeles today. We need families and neighbors to work together with our schools and with our employees to make sure our kids are safe throughout the day. We need employers to show the flexibility that a situation like this demands. And we ask you to show the maximum possible flexibility with your employees who are primarily mothers and fathers and guardians today in this situation. At our school sites, we have asked administrators and plant managers to report. We are asking for teachers and other support personnel to stay home today. Once again, I want to reiterate on behalf of the entire Board of Education our support for the superintendent, for the chief of police. The actions that we are taking today are swift and they are appropriate given the situation that we are in, and we ask for the patience and the cooperation and support of the city. The education of our kids is incredibly important. The only thing that's more important is their safety, and the superintendent has acted in regards to that safety this morning. I'd now like to introduce our Deputy Superintendent for Operations, Dr. Thelma Melendez de Santa Ana, who will make a statement in Spanish.
Could we ask a couple of questions before you do that?
Sure.
Sir,
I said I would.
All right. Can you give us a little bit more about the nature of the threat, why you feel this is so serious that school has to be canceled?
I think later in the day, after they continue the investigation and vetting, as you heard the chief say, with the FBI, we will make a statement, but not at this time.
Was it a broad threat affecting all the schools, or?
It was a broad, and it was not to one school, 2 schools, or 3 schools. It was many schools, not specifically identified, but there were many schools. That's the reason I took the action that I did.
The chief called it an electronic threat. What does that mean?
It was a message.
Mr. Cortinez, was there any threat made to buses? We know all the buses were returned to the yards this morning. What can you say to that?
There was not threat made to buses. The reason they were returned is because we're not picking up students. It was to students at schools. Nothing more than that at this time.
Students at schools, you said?
At schools, students, yes.
Mr. Cortinez, you mentioned some details were shared with you regarding backpacks and other packages. Can you elaborate on that?
No, I can't. The chief, after he's met with the city police and the FBI, he will be making further statements on why I made the decision I made.
You have more than 900 campuses. Are you able to say whether these were even elementary schools, high schools?
Let me tell you, I can't take a chance, and all schools, I've asked them to be searched today by the appropriate people, and appropriate people are not necessarily teachers or support people if there is a problem. I want our chief of police working with the city police and working with the sheriff to develop a plan. We have 6 districts to work systematically through every one of those schools. Some of them are very large schools, some of them are schools with 3 and 4 rooms to them, but I want every school, every early education center, every adult school, I want them searched and a report made to me and to the Board of Education that it is safe.
Many faculty members arrive early, well before 7 a.m. Are all campuses then being evacuated for anyone that was on campus?
They have been told to go home.
What happens to kids who may already be at school? Are you telling their parents to come pick them up now, or how does that
yes,
work?
there has been a Connect Ed. The board president reviewed that with you, that they have been asked to meet at a certain gate, the principal to be there, the plant manager to be there, no child to be left alone. I know it is cold. We're making every effort to see that we get the notification to parents as soon as possible, but I am not taking the chance of bringing children any place into any part of the building until I know it's safe.
Can you clarify then, this is all students, teachers, staff, all personnel, everyone involved in your campuses?
At the campuses, yes. That is what I've done, yes.
Incorporates everyone.
Yes.
Can you give us a little context? I know you can't go into this specific threat, but a little context for our parents at home. How many threats does the school district get? How rare is it to get a threat like this?
This is a rare threat. We get threats all the time.
Yeah, what I want to ask you then is why was this one?
Let him finish, Eric.
Go ahead. I'm just curious about this one in particular, why you got this kind of response.
I think the circumstances in a neighboring San Bernardino, I think what has happened in the nation, I think what happened internationally, I, as superintendent, am not going to take the chance with the life of a student. Remember, we do get individual threats. We do evacuate to schools. We do lock down schools, etc., and do not release students until we notify parents. So what we are doing today is no different than what we always do, except that we are doing this in a mass way.
You mentioned this earlier. We know it's early, but at this point, for people who are watching right now, I know there's an update going to come later today, but where do we stand for even tomorrow?
Yeah, I have no comment on that. I've told you that I will release a statement before the end of the day.
Can we do Spanish language now?
Es tan importante. Buenos días.
I want to introduce you to Monica Garcia, board member.
Buenos
She
días.
will translate for us.
Buenos días a todos nuestros padres. Estamos aquí unidos con ustedes pidiéndoles que por favor mantengan sus jóvenes en sus casas. Ahora las escuelas, todas las escuelas del distrito están cerradas. Estamos tomando lo máximo en precaución para asegurar que sus jóvenes y sus familias están seguras. Ahora no tenemos detalles sobre el asunto, solamente les pedimos que por favor hoy día 15 de diciembre mantengan a sus jóvenes en sus casas. La escuela está cerrada. El superintendente está trabajando con todas las autoridades Y si llegan los jóvenes a la escuela...
All right, I do apologize for interrupting. That was the original Los Angeles press conference. I'm going to bring you the second, and I'm going to bring that to you in full. However, I am getting in via our live feed Hillary Clinton discussing her foreign policy strategy, and I'm going to take you to Minneapolis right now. Hillary is on the stage. She hasn't taken the podium yet, but it's Hillary Clinton discussing her foreign policy. And we were talking about this with Ron Hoon earlier today. I thought it was such a strange time to discuss foreign policy when the debate's happening tonight. Almost, why would you try to compete with the GOP debate? And Ron said this is typically something she does because this is typically just a part of the strategy to steal thunder, I suppose. So let's take a look at Hillary Clinton in Minneapolis discussing her foreign policy strategy.
As Secretary of State, she led the charge to restore America's leadership in the world. She spearheaded a global sanctions coalition, and she did more here. Hold on. She spearheaded a global sanctions coalition against Iran that spurred the agreement that will prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. She brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas while championing human rights around the world. And she recommended to President Obama in the Situation Room that he authorize the mission to bring Osama bin Laden to justice. She has been the only candidate in the race to lay out a specific and comprehensive plan to defeat ISIS in every place that it presents a threat, in the Middle East, around the world, and yes, here at home. Now she comes to Minnesota, and may I thank her for coming to this wonderful university of ours. She's here to give more details on the last part of her plan, protecting America's homes, schools, houses of worship, and businesses from domestic radicalization and foreign extremists. I have known Hillary for a long time. There is no one I trust more to sit in the Oval Office. So please join me in welcoming the next President of the United States, Hillary Clinton.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here at this great university, one of the premier public institutions of higher education in our entire country. Yes, indeed. It's just, one of those statements of fact that deserves a response. I want to thank my longtime friend, Vice President Mondale, for his kind words. His support in this campaign means a great deal to me personally because I admire so much his service to our country. He is a great Minnesotan and a great American, and we're so privileged to have him with us today. I also want to acknowledge a few of the other elected officials who are here. I am, of course, absolutely delighted to be joined by former colleagues and friends, your senators, Amy Klobuchar and Al Franken, who are quite the dynamic duo for your state. And I am grateful to them for everything they're doing and for their help and support of my campaign. I also want to thank Tina Smith, your Lieutenant Governor, and Steve Simon, your Secretary of State. And I understand that Betsy Hodges is here, Mayor of Minneapolis. Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge the dean of the Humphrey School, Eric Schwartz. Eric was my top advisor on refugee issues at the State Department. I also had the great privilege of working with him when he was on the National Security Council during my husband's administration. You know, he brings a mix of expertise and empathy that has been conspicuously missing from much of our public debate. And I am grateful he is here today, but I'm also a little jealous that all of you here at the university get to have the benefit of his experience. You know, over the past several months, I have listened to the problems that keep American families up at night. Now, most people don't expect life to be easy, but they want more security, a good-paying job that lets you afford a middle-class lifestyle, health care you can count on, a little bit put away for your retirement. Being secure also means being safe. Safe at home, at school, at work. And today I want to talk about how we keep our country safe from a threat that's on everyone's minds, the threat of terrorism. But I want to begin by saying we cannot give in to fear. We can't let it stop us from doing what is right and necessary to make us safe, and doing it in a way that is consistent with our values. We cannot let fear push us into reckless actions that end up making us less safe. Americans are going to have to act with both courage and clarity. Now, as we all know, on December 2nd, 2 shooters killed 14 people at a holiday party in San Bernardino, California. Sadly, in America in 2015, turning on the news and hearing about a mass shooting is not unusual. But this one turned out to be different, because these killers were a husband and wife inspired by ISIS. Americans have experienced terrorism before. On 9/11, we learned that terrorists in Afghanistan could strike our homeland. From Fort Hood to Chattanooga to the Boston Marathon, we saw people radicalized here carrying out deadly attacks. But San Bernardino felt different. Maybe it was the timing, coming so soon after the Paris attacks. Maybe it was how random it seemed. A terrorist attack in a suburban office park, not a high-profile target or symbol of American power. It made us all feel it could have been anywhere at any time. The phrase active shooter should not be one we have to teach our children, but it is. And now we are all grappling with what this means for our future, for our safety, our sense of well-being, and our trust and connections with our neighbors. We want to be open-hearted, and we want to celebrate America's diversity, not fear it. And while we know the overwhelming majority of people here and around the world hate ISIS and love peace, we do have to be prepared for more terrorists plotting attacks. Just yesterday, a man in Maryland was charged with receiving thousands of dollars from ISIS for use in planning an attack. And here in Minnesota, authorities have charged 10 men with conspiring to provide material support to ISIS. But in the Twin Cities, you have also seen firsthand how communities come together to resist radicalization. Local imams condemning terrorist violence, local artists and activists pushing back against terrorist propaganda. I just met with a group of community leaders who told me about some of the work and the challenges that they are dealing with. As the first Somali-American police sergeant in Minnesota, and probably in the country, said recently, safety is a shared responsibility, so we have to work together. The threat we face is daunting, but America has overcome big challenges many times before. Throughout our history, we've stared into the face of evil and refused to blink. We beat fascism, won the Cold War, brought Osama bin Laden to justice. So no one should ever underestimate the determination of the American people. And I'm confident we will once again choose resolve over fear. And we will defeat these new enemies, just as we have defeated those who threatened us in the past. Because it is not enough to contain ISIS. We must defeat ISIS, break its momentum, and then it's back. And not just ISIS, but the broader radical jihadist movement that also includes al-Qaeda and offshoots like al-Shabaab in Somalia. Now, waging and winning this fight will require serious leadership. But unfortunately, our political debate has been anything but serious. We can't afford another major ground war in the Middle East. That's exactly what ISIS wants from us. Shallow slogans don't add up to a strategy. Promising to carpet bomb until the desert glows doesn't make you sound strong. It makes you sound like you're in over your head. Bluster and bigotry are not credentials for becoming commander-in-chief, and it is hard to take seriously senators who talk tough but then hold up key national security nominations, including the top official at the Treasury Department responsible for disrupting terrorist financing. Every day that's wasted on partisan gridlock could put Americans in danger. So, yes, we need a serious discussion, and that's why in a speech last month before the Council on Foreign Relations, I laid out a three-part plan to defeat ISIS and the broader extremist movement. One, defeat ISIS in the Middle East by smashing its stronghold, hitting its fighters, leaders, and infrastructure from the air, and intensifying support for local forces who can pursue them on the ground. Second, defeat them around the world by dismantling the global network of terror that supplies radical jihadists with money, arms, propaganda, and fighters. And third, defeat them here at home by foiling plots, disrupting radicalization, and hardening our defenses. Now, these three lines of effort reinforce one another. So we need to pursue them all at once, using every pillar of American power. It will require skillful diplomacy to continue Secretary Kerry's efforts to encourage political reconciliation in Iraq and political transition in Syria, enabling more Sunni Arabs and Kurdish fighters to take on ISIS on both sides of the border, and to get our Arab and Turkish partners to actually step up and do their part. It will require more U.S. and allied air power and a broader target set for strikes by planes and drones with proper safeguards. It will require special operations units to advise and train local forces and conduct key counterterrorism missions. What it will not require is tens of thousands of American combat troops. That is not the right action for us to take in this situation. So there is a lot to do. And today I want to focus on the third part of my plan, how we defend our country and prevent radicalization here at home. We need a comprehensive strategy to counter each step in the process that can lead to an attack like the one in San Bernardino. First, we have to shut down ISIS recruitment in the United States, especially online. Second, stop would-be jihadists from getting training overseas and stop foreign terrorists from coming here. Third, discover and disrupt plots before they can be carried out. Fourth, support law enforcement officers who risk their lives to prevent and respond to attacks. And fifth, empower our Muslim American communities who are on the front lines of the fight against radicalization. This is a 360-degree strategy to keep America safe, and I want to walk through each of the elements from recruitment to training to planning to execution. First, shutting down recruitment. We have to stop jihadists from radicalizing new recruits in person and through social media, chat rooms, and what's called the dark web. To do that, we need stronger relationships between Washington, Silicon Valley, and all of our great tech companies and entrepreneurs. American innovation is a powerful force, and we have to put it to work defeating ISIS. That starts with understanding where and how recruitment happens. Our security professionals need to more effectively track and analyze ISIS's social media posts and map jihadist networks, and they need help from the tech community. Companies should redouble their efforts to maintain and enforce their own service agreements and other necessary policies to police their networks, identifying extremist content and removing it. Now, many are already doing this, and sharing those best practices more widely is important. At the State Department, I started an interagency center to combat violent jihadist messages, to have a better way to communicate on behalf of our values, and to give young people drawn to those messages an alternative narrative. We recruited specialists fluent in Arabic, Urdu, and Somali to wage online battles with extremists to counter their propaganda. Now, these efforts have not kept pace with the threat, so we need to step up our game in partnership with the private sector and credible, moderate voices outside government. But that's just some of what we have to do. Experts from the FBI, the intelligence community, Homeland Security, DOD, the State Department, and the technology industry should work together to develop a unified national strategy to defeat ISIS in cyberspace, using all of our capabilities to deny jihadists virtual territory just as we work to deny them actual territory. And at the same time, we have to do more to address the challenge of radicalization, whatever form it takes. It's imperative that the Saudis the Qataris, the Kuwaitis, and others stop their citizens from supporting radical schools, madrasas, and mosques around the world once and for all, and that should be the top priority in all of our discussions with these countries. Now, second, we have to prevent ISIS recruits from training abroad and prevent foreign jihadists from coming here. Most urgent is stemming the flow of fighters from Europe and America to Iraq and Syria, and then back home again. The United States and our allies needs to know the identities of every fighter who makes that trip, and then share information with each other in real time. Right now, European nations don't always alert each other when they turn away a suspected extremist at the border or when a passport is stolen. They have to dramatically improve intelligence sharing and counterterrorism cooperation, and we're ready to help them do that. We also need to take down the network of enablers who help jihadists finance and facilitate their travel, forge documents, and evade detection. And the United States and our allies should commit to revoke the passports and visas of jihadists who have gone to join ISIS or other groups and bring the full force of the law against them. As I have said before, the United States has to take a close look at our visa programs, and I am glad the administration and Congress are stepping up scrutiny in the wake of San Bernardino. And that should include scrutinizing applicants' social media postings. We also should dispatch more Homeland Security agents to high-risk countries to better investigate visa applicants. For many years, America has waived visa requirements for travelers from countries with reliable security procedures, including key allies in Europe and Asia. That makes sense, but we also have to be smart. Except for limited exceptions like diplomats and aid workers, anyone who has traveled in the past 5 years to a country facing serious problems with terrorism and foreign fighters should have to go through a full visa investigation, no matter where they're from. We also have to be vigilant in screening and vetting refugees from Syria, guided by the best judgment of our security and diplomatic professionals. Rigorous vetting already takes place while refugees are still overseas, and it's a process that historically takes 18 to 24 months. But Congress needs to provide enough resources to ensure we have sufficient personnel deployed to run the most thorough possible process. And just as importantly, we cannot allow terrorists to intimidate us into abandoning our values and our humanitarian obligations. Turning away orphans, applying a religious test that discriminates against Muslims, slamming the door on every single Syrian refugee, that is not who we are as Americans. We are better than that. It would be a cruel irony indeed if ISIS can force families from their homes and then also prevent them from finding new ones. So after rigorous screening, we should welcome families fleeing Syria, just as the Twin Cities and this state have welcomed previous generations of refugees, exiles, and immigrants. course, the key is to prevent terrorists also from exploiting our compassion and endangering our security. But we can do this, and I think we must. Third, we have to discover and disrupt jihadist plots before they can be carried out. This is going to take better intelligence collection, analysis, and sharing. I've proposed an intelligence surge against ISIS that includes more operations officers and linguists, enhancing our technical surveillance of overseas targets, intercepting terrorist communications, flying more reconnaissance missions to track terrorist movements, and developing even closer partnerships with other intelligence services. President Obama recently signed the USA Freedom Act, which was passed by a bipartisan majority in Congress. It protects civil liberties while maintaining capabilities that our intelligence and law enforcement agencies need to keep us safe. However, the new law is now under attack from presidential candidates on the left and right. Some would strip away crucial counterterrorism tools, even with appropriate judicial and congressional oversight. And others seem eager to go back to discredited practices of the past. I don't think we can afford to let either view prevail. Now, encryption of mobile devices and communications does present a particularly tough problem with important implications for security and civil liberties. Law enforcement and counterterrorism professionals warn that impenetrable encryption may make it harder for them to investigate plots and prevent future attacks. On the other hand, there are very legitimate worries about privacy, network security, and creating new vulnerabilities that bad actors can exploit. I know there's no magic fix to this dilemma that will satisfy all these concerns, but we can't just throw up our hands. The tech community and the government have to stop seeing each other as adversaries and start working together to keep us safe from terrorists. And even as we make sure law enforcement officials get the tools they need to prevent attacks, it's essential that we also make sure jihadists don't get the tools they need to carry out attacks. It defies common sense that Republicans in Congress refuse to make it harder for potential terrorists to buy guns. If you are too dangerous to fly, you are too dangerous to buy a gun, period. And we should insist on comprehensive background checks and close loopholes that allow potential terrorists to buy weapons online or at gun shows. And I think it's time to restore the ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Now, I know that this will drive some of our Republican friends a little crazy. You'll probably hear it tonight. They will say that guns are a totally separate issue, nothing to do with terrorism. Well, I have news for them. Terrorists use guns to kill Americans, and I think we should make it a lot harder for them to do that ever again. And there's a question they should be asked. Why don't the Republican candidates want to do that? You see, I have this old-fashioned idea that we elect a president in large part, to keep us safe from terrorists, from gun violence, from whatever threatens our families and communities, and I'm not going to let the gun lobby or anyone else tell me that's not the right path for us to go down. Now, Now, the fourth element in my strategy is supporting law enforcement officers who risk their lives to prevent and respond to terrorist attacks. In San Bernardino, city, county, state, and federal authorities acted with speed and courage to prevent even more loss of life. Detective Jorge Lozano, a 15-year police veteran, assured terrified civilians, "I'll take a bullet before you do." There is no limit to the gratitude we owe to law enforcement professionals like that detective who run toward danger to try to save lives. And not just in the immediate wake of an attack. Our police, firefighters, and emergency responders will keep putting their lives on the line long after the cameras move on. It's really disgraceful that Congress has thus far failed to keep faith with first responders suffering from the lasting health effects of 9/11. Many of them were men and women I was so proud to represent as a senator from New York. The Zadroga 9/11 Health Act never should have been allowed to lapse. It looks like Majority Leader McConnell may have finally dropped his opposition, and I hope the American people will hold him to that, and we will continue to honor the service and sacrifice of those who responded to the worst terrorist attack in our history. We have to make sure that local law enforcement has the resources and training they need to keep us safe. And they should be more closely synced up with national counterterrorism experts, including with better use of fusion centers that serve as clearinghouses for intelligence and coordination. And we need to strengthen our defenses and our resilience wherever we're vulnerable, whether it's soft targets like shopping malls or higher profile targets like airports, railways, or power plants. We have to build on the progress of the Obama administration in locking down loose nuclear materials and other WMD so they never fall into the hands of terrorists who seek them actively around the world. So we should be providing the Department of Homeland Security with the resources it needs to stay one step ahead, not trying to privatize key functions like TSA, as some Republicans have proposed. And it's important for us to recognize that when we talk about law enforcement, we have made progress in being sure that our federal authorities share information with our state and local authorities. But that was an issue I tackled after 9/11, and we have to stay really vigilant so that information is in the hands where it needs to be. Now, finally, the fifth element in the strategy is empowering Muslim American communities who are on the front lines in the fight against radicalization. There are millions of peace-loving American Muslims living, working, raising families, paying taxes in our country. These Americans may be our first, last, and best defense against homegrown radicalization and terrorism. They are the most likely to recognize the insidious effects of radicalization before it's too late, intervene to help set a young person straight. They are the best positioned to block anything going forward. That's why law enforcement has worked so hard since 9/11 to build up trust and strong relationships within Muslim American communities. Here in the Twin Cities, you have an innovative partnership that brings together parents, teachers, imams, and others in the Somali American community with law enforcement, nonprofits, local businesses, mental health professionals, and others to intervene with young people who are at risk. It's called the Building Community Resilience Pilot Program, and it deserves increased support It has not gotten the financial resources that it needs to do everything the people involved in it know they can do, and we've got to do a better job of supporting it. Now, I know that, like many places across the country, there's more work to do to increase trust between communities and law enforcement. Just last month, I know here a young African-American man was fatally shot by a police officer, and I understand an investigation is underway. Whatever the outcome, tragedies like this raise hard questions about racial justice in America and put at risk efforts to build the community relationships that help keep us safe from crime and from terrorism. When people see that respect and trust are two-way streets, they are more likely to work hand in hand with law enforcement. One of the mothers of the 10 men recently charged with conspiring with terrorists said, "We have to stop the denial." She told other parents that. We have to talk to our kids and work with the FBI. That's a message we need to hear from leaders within Muslim American communities across our country. But we also want to highlight the successes in Muslim American communities, and there are so many of them. I just met with the first Somali American council member of the city council here, and he was proudly telling me how much change Somali immigrants, now Muslim Americans, have made in parts of the city and neighborhoods that had been pretty much hollowed out. Let's look at the successes. If we're going to fully integrate everyone into America, then we need to be seeing all their contributions too. And that is one of the many reasons why we must all stand up against offensive, inflammatory, hateful, anti-Muslim rhetoric. You know, not only do these comments cut against everything we stand for as Americans, they are also dangerous. As the director of the FBI told Congress recently, anything that erodes trust with Muslim Americans makes the job of law enforcement more difficult. We need every community invested in this fight, not alienated and sitting on the sidelines. One of the community leaders I met with told me that a lot of the children in the community are now afraid to go to school. They're not only afraid of being perceived as a threat, they are afraid of being threatened because of who they are. This is such an open-hearted and generous community. I hope there will be even more efforts, perhaps under the aegis of the university and certainly Governor Dayton and others, to bring people together to reassure members of the community, particularly children and teenagers, that they are welcome, invited, and valued here in this city and state. Now, Donald Trump's proposal to ban all Muslims from entering the United States has rightly sparked outrage across our country and around the world. Even some of the other Republican candidates are saying he's gone too far. But the truth is, many of those same candidates have also said disgraceful things about Muslims. And this kind of divisive rhetoric actually plays into the hands of terrorists. It alienates partners and undermines moderates we need around the world in this fight against ISIS. You know, you hear a lot of talk from some of the other candidates about coalitions. Everyone seems to want one. But there's not nearly as much talk about what it actually takes to build a coalition and make it work. I know how hard this is because I've done it. And I can tell you, insulting potential allies doesn't make it any easier. And demonizing Muslims also feeds a narrative that jihadists use to recruit new followers around the world. That the United States is at war with Islam. As both the Pentagon and the FBI have said in the past week, we cannot in any way lend credence to that twisted idea. This is not a clash of civilizations. This is a clash between civilization and barbarism, and that's how it must be seen and fought. Some will tell you that our open society is a vulnerability in the struggle against terrorism. I disagree. I believe our tolerance and diversity are at the core of our strength. At a naturalization ceremony for new citizens today in Washington, President Obama noted the tension throughout our history between welcoming or rejecting the stranger. It is, he said, about the meaning of America. What kind of country do we want to be? And it's about the capacity of each generation to honor the creed as old as our founding, e pluribus unum, that out of many we are one. President Obama's right, and it matters. It's no coincidence that American Muslims have long been better integrated and less susceptible to radicalization than Muslims in less welcoming nations. And we cannot give in to demagogues who play on our basest instincts. We must instead rely on the principles written in to our American DNA: freedom, equality, opportunity. America is strongest when all our people believe they have a stake in our country and our future, no matter where they're from, what they look like, how they worship, or who they love. Our country was founded by people fleeing religious persecution. As George Washington put it, the United States gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance. So to all our Muslim American brothers and sisters, this is your country true, and I am proud to be your fellow American. And I want to remind us, particularly our Republican friends, that George W. Bush was right. 6 days after 9/11, he went to a Muslim community center, and here's what he said: "Those who feel like they can intimidate our fellow citizens to take out their anger don't represent the best of America. They represent the worst of humankind, and they should be ashamed of that kind of behavior." So, if you want to see the best of America, you need look no further than Army Captain Humayun Khan. He was born in the United Arab Emirates. He moved to Maryland as a small child. He later graduated from the University of Virginia. before enlisting in the United States Army. In June 2004, he was serving in Iraq. One day, while his infantry unit was guarding the gates of their base, a suspicious vehicle appeared. Captain Khan told his troops to get back, but he went forward. He took 10 steps toward the car before it exploded. Captain Khan was killed, but his unit was saved by his courageous act. Captain Khan was posthumously awarded the Bronze Star and Purple Heart. He was just 27 years old. We still wonder what made him take those 10 steps, Khan's father said in a recent interview. Maybe that's the point, he went on, where all the values, all the service to country, all the things he learned in this country kicked in. It was those values that made him take those 10 steps. Those 10 steps told us we did not make a mistake in moving to this country, his father finished. As hard as this is, it is time to move from fear to resolve. It's time to stand up and say, we are Americans. We are the greatest nation on earth, not in spite of the challenges we've faced, but because of them. Americans will not buckle or break. We will not turn on each other or turn on our principles. We will pursue our enemies with unyielding power and purpose. We will crush their would-be caliphate and counter radical jihadism wherever it takes root. We're in it for the long haul, and we'll stand taller and stronger than they can possibly imagine. That's what we do here. That's who we are. That's how we will win, by looking at one another with respect, with concern, with commitment. That's the America that I know makes us all so proud to be a part of. Thank you all very much.
Okay now. Earlier with the full shots on the front. Yeah, no problem. No problem. It's all good. See you, man.
Right, so that was Hillary Clinton laying out foreign policy strategy.
Oh, yeah, okay. No problem. Hey, you're my friend too. It's all good.
I'll never be.
Well, I think she was I thought so.
We are doing everything possible to make sure that children are safe, but that also students and parents understand that the precautions we are taking are done in a calming way, are done in a way that is in the best interest of everybody in this particular city.
And again,
Not
this
only
not
is it the
live.
city
This
of
is
LA,
from
as you
11
know,
a.m.
the school district represents many independent cities, and we have reached out to them also. There are unincorporated areas in this school district that we have reached out to. I have reached out to the Board of Supervisors. I've reached out to the City Council. I've notified the State Superintendent of Schools. I have notified the Secretary of Education. Mainly because there are no secrets. Somebody has sent information that leads us to pause and make sure that we are safe, that our children and our staff are safe. Nobody could be more interested in this city than our mayor. Our mayor and his staff has joined us early this morning, and our mayor is here now. I'd like to turn it over to him.
Thank you very much, Mr. Superintendent. Good morning, everybody. The decision to close the schools is not mine to make, but it is mine to support as mayor of the city of Los Angeles. Since San Bernardino, we have seen whether it was our colleagues there who asked for the help of the Los Angeles Police Department as that shooting unfolded, or this morning when LAUSD reached out to the Los Angeles Police Department and the city of LA for assistance. We are here because our first job is to ensure that people are safe in this city. It is very easy for people to jump to conclusions, and I've been around long enough to know that usually what people think in the first few hours is not necessarily how it plays out in later hours. We see investigations unfold sometimes for a series of days, but decisions need to be made in a matter of minutes. I have been immediately on the phone when we learned of this with Phil Washington, the CEO of MTA, to ensure that students could travel free on our buses and our rail lines today, to ensure they can get home safely, to make sure that they are able to get through this city without having to worry, because we know a lot of parents still have to continue to get to work and can't even afford to miss one day. But we are here, Chief Beck and I, was local law enforcement here through LAPD's very extensive and experienced training and leadership that connected some of the dots nationally on this. We of course reached out, and the school district reached out immediately to our federal law enforcement officials who have been extra taxed in recent weeks since San Bernardino, but to bring them into this investigation. But also it was in talking to our counterparts in New York and learning of other places where now we realized this was not the only city to face that threat. We will continue to hope that this is nothing and that our children can be back at school tomorrow. But as a parent and as a mayor, certainly I'm here to support this school district as it seeks our help to ensure that we can look at each one of these campuses and make sure that they are safe for all of our children. And an abundance of caution is something that I think all of us who have children appreciate. So we will be here, continue to be here. We have also activated the city's Emergency Operations Center at level 1, which is our lowest level but constant staffing, to make sure that we can follow this, continue to share any intelligence, work with our federal law enforcement officials, and do whatever the school district asks of us. My number one priority is keeping this city safe, and I will continue to do that. No matter who reaches out to us, we have incredibly well-trained police force. And one last thing I would say to the people of LA, whether this pans out as something that could have happened or not, and we might not ever be able to conclude that definitively, I do not want people to say, because sometimes things don't result in a shooting or don't result in a foiled plot, to not speak up and to not speak out. We need to continue to have people, if you see something, say something. Visit iwatchla.com and learn how you can be more vigilant. As we continue to live our lives here in the city of Los Angeles and the values that we hold of freedom, of our liberty, we want to make sure also that we are safe. También brevemente en español yo quiero decir, estamos aquí a apoyar el distrito escolar con esta situación. Como un padre, como el alcalde de la ciudad de Los Ángeles, es muy importante apoyar este distrito con la seguridad de nuestros hijos. Estamos aquí a proveer estos oficiales del Departamento de Policía. Es mi esperanza que este no es una amenaza creíble, pero estamos aquí a proteger a nuestros niños y continuaremos con esta misión. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Chief Beck, I'd like to call on you next.
Thank you, Superintendent. Very late last night, the Los Angeles Police Department was contacted by LA Unified School Police Chief Zipperman about a very specific threat that had been delivered via email to a number of the people on the school board. After reviewing that threat, we became very concerned, contacted the FBI, and began to work jointly through our Joint Terrorism Task Force to try to vet that threat and to be able to give the school board and the superintendent our best advice on moving forward. We were able to do that. The superintendent made a decision. We support his decision, as does the mayor. I would say this to people that are critical. It is very easy, in hindsight, to criticize a decision based on results that the decider could never have known. It is also very easy to criticize a decision when you have no responsibility for the outcome of that decision. The school district safeguards 750,000 lives every day. When they make a decision, they have to take into account the safety of the children of Los Angeles. I think it's irresponsible based on facts that have yet to be determined, to criticize that decision at this point. All of us make tough choices. All of us have the same goal in mind. We want to keep our kids safe. These are tough times. These communities, our community, Southern California, has been through a lot in the recent weeks. Should we risk putting our children through the same? I'm also joined by my partner in law enforcement here, the other half of what keeps the region safe, Sheriff Jim McDonald, and if it's okay with Ray, I'd like to have Jim say a few words.
Speak. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Just here to be able to, I guess, add a note of reassurance that we're working very closely together. Once we became aware of this issue, we immediately became in contact. We have co-located our representatives in the Emergency Operations Center, and we then strategically from there start vetting the information that's available to us, working with all of our partners at the federal, state, and local level. We are blessed that in this region we have great relationships, and when we have the need, we come together in a way that I think you would all be very proud of, although we don't and can't really talk about it. A lot of work is being done to be able to run this to ground, and we're working together to ensure that the 700,000 young people who go to LA Unified are safe, and that we continue to move forward with that common goal in mind. So I thank you for your understanding and for working with us as we deal with this very difficult issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I want you to meet the Chief of School Police, Mr. Zipperman, and then I will turn it over to the board president to introduce the board.
Good afternoon. I just want to say again to all of my law enforcement colleagues, Sheriff McDonald, Chief Beck, Honorable Mayor, as indicated before, sometimes we have to make tough decisions, as it's already been stated. I assure you that our number one priority is the safety and security of not only our students, but our staff as well. We go based on the information that we have, and we collaborate with our law enforcement partners, and LAPD now is taking the lead on this as a result of the threat as in the protocol. I assure you as the Chief of Police of the school district that while our campuses are having a walkthrough as we speak, that none of our schools will be reopened until not only I feel that we have been given the information through those folks that are out there in the field right now checking each location, that the information that I will receive based on LAPD's continued investigation based on the collaboration and communication with Sheriff McDonald, Chief Beck, and certainly our federal partners, and then finally the briefing and concurrence with the superintendent and the Board of Education. At that time is when we will make a decision to open up our schools, and we will not do that until we are completely satisfied that we have taken every measure possible to ensure the safety of our students. Thank you.
Board President.
Good morning. I want to thank the mayor, the chief, the sheriff, our chief of police, and especially our superintendent of schools. On behalf of the entire board, and the entire board is gathered here in solidarity with this decision and in support of everyone who is working and has been working through the night to keep our children, our schools safe so that they can return to be the anchors of our community. I want you to know also, on behalf of the board, that I've never been prouder to be an Angelino than I have been over the last few hours. This entire city has come together around our children, around their families. This is not an easy situation. This is a difficult day for families in Los Angeles. This is a difficult day for teachers who want nothing more than to teach our kids and to give hope for the future. But I want you to know that the only thing that is more important to this Board of Education, to our superintendent, to all of the civic leaders that are gathered here today, the only thing that is more important than the education of our children is the safety of our children. And we will make sure that that safety is assured, working together as all of us have. I want to say again to the leadership of our community, our labor partners who have stepped up in every way this morning, our business community, we will need your patience, we will need your understanding, not only for our schools and our teachers, but most especially for our families. More than being employees today, more than any other role, our parents and guardians need to be parents and guardians. So as we move forward throughout the day, we will work with and continue to work with the superintendent, his team, and our law enforcement partners, and we will make sure that we will do everything that we can to help you do your job. And we thank you for keeping our communities informed and engaged and making sure that we will be able to continue with the business of public education in Los Angeles. Superintendent?
I want the media and the press to know that I've instructed Mrs. Haber, the district's communication officer, to issue half-hour information briefs for the rest of the day. So there may be some of them that say we don't have anything new, but I want everybody to know as much as possible. I want you to know we are not going to take questions. This is an investigation. The investigation is not complete, and when the city police who have charge of the investigation decide that information is available, we will make that information available to you. But we will have no comment until then. Ms. Haber, though, will release updates every half hour. Thank you very much.
Do you still believe this to be a responsibility? Don't you have a responsibility to tell all their kids out of school today, and you can't tell us more about the threat, about exactly what led to this decision? You can't answer any questions.
I'm George McKenna. I'm the Vice President of the Board. Superintendent indicated we would not be answering questions now. But I want to say something. This is not a day of wasted time. Students would prefer to be in school, but this is an educational process right now. Students have learned today, and parents have learned how much we value them, how much we value students. This is an educational experience, that they're more valuable to us than any other people in this world, that our children's safety is important enough for us to take this extreme step. We know it's extreme, but we take it with a heart, we take it with the support of law enforcement and the belief that we're doing the right thing. To do otherwise might be unfortunate. But rather than maybe, we want to do what we know is possible. We cannot divulge everything you'd like to know, and I'm sure we'd be here for a long time with you asking questions. But we will not be able to do that. What we want you to know, to the parents, as soon as possible, we will be back in school. Schools will always be here, and this is an educational experience. Teach your children that we do this on their behalf, not to give them a day out of school. Some of them may enjoy a day out of school, but this is not a good thing. This is a thing that we have to do on their behalf. Thank you for your interest.
I'm sorry, you guys released information about Germany.
I'm sorry you are asking questions that we will not ask. We will not answer your questions.
Buenos días, tardes. Soy Mónica García. Quiero brevemente agradecer al alcalde, al jefe de policía, a nuestro sheriff.
All right, guys, I'm going to try to move over on the side because I know people are continuing to this press conference here, but just to give you a recap of what happened, many people up here stress that the only thing more important than the children's education is their safety. That's why they were pulled out of school today. They did not talk about the threat itself, though, and if, in hindsight, it was a credible threat. Superintendent Ramon Cortines did say he doesn't regret shutting the schools down. Garcetti talked about how he ensured the students could go home safely. Chief Charlie Beck and Joe McDonald also spoke briefly. They talked about how the threat was delivered to a number of people on the board, but again, they did not really talk about the threat itself, and if hindsight, if it was a credible one. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Para el bienestar de nuestros jóvenes. Muchísimas gracias.
Chief, can you just answer one question?
Let me just say, we're happy to answer some questions. I think that's fair. Hold on. I think it's fair, and I understand the question about the nature of the threat. Ongoing investigation, but we should frame that, and people do deserve those answers. A threat made via email to multiple campuses, or all the campuses of LAUSD, was received last night. We won't go into any further detail about who received it right now, but it threatened violence to our students and to our campuses, and implied, that could come in a number of forms of violence, with weapons, and that things were already in place to bring that violence about. That is why I believe the superintendent made the call that he did. Again, we've learned since that we're not the only city that received an email like that, which is one of the pieces we put together. We've heard about that in New York. There may be other places that come out in future hours as well. And that is why there's an abundance of caution of going into campuses to ensure that it is nothing more than a threat. But if it had any credibility here or any place in the United States, especially given about what just happened in San Bernardino, we wanted to make sure that we supported the school district in the mission with the 10,000 police officers we have. I know the sheriff felt the same way, to be able to support the clearing of those campuses and the reassurance that there is nothing there. We can't assume that there isn't until we do that work, which is why it is so critical to do that. I'd like to ask the chief to see if he'd like to add anything to that about the specific threat.
Mayor, can I just ask you a quick question?
Hold on 1 second. Let me have the chief.
Let's do this and I answer some of your questions. So, when we began the investigation, we found out a number of things. The email was very specific to LA Unified School District campuses, and it included all of them. It was also very specific about the threat, the implied threat. The implied threat was explosive devices. The specific threat was attack with assault rifles and machine pistols. These obviously are things that we take very seriously. We worked with the FBI to vet this as best as possible. And I think this has been reported already. The original document was routed through a European country, Germany, but the origin has yet to be determined, and we believe to be much closer than Germany. I'm not going to go into the specifics of that, but suffice it to say that anytime these kind of threats are made against our campuses, given all the school shootings in America, given San Bernardino, we take them seriously. We gave the school district our best advice on this, and they chose a path. And you know what? As I said, everybody has to make decisions in life. some people, the superintendent in this case, had to make a decision that affects everybody in this city's children and another 100,000 of his own employees. And I think it's irresponsible to criticize the decision maker when they make a decision based on totality of information and based on following their heart and their belief.
Chief
Okay, you gotta do this one at a time. I cannot hear you all.
Knowing what you know now, do you believe this to be a credible threat?
We are still vetting this threat. I will not categorize it as credible or non-credible at this point. As I said, there is work left to be done on this, and we will run this to ground with the help of the FBI, hopefully by the end of the day, so we can make an even better informed decision, or the superintendent and the school board can make an even better informed decision tomorrow.
Would you have recommended to close down the schools? Would you have recommended that? Did you recommend that?
No. That is not my role. I get to make a lot of decisions in my life, as the mayor gets to make a lot of decisions in his life. This is not one of them. My role in this scenario is to give the superintendent and the school board the best information I have, and to help them with that information to make a decision that is theirs to make. It is not my decision. And just like any time I give decision makers advice when it's not my decision, my advice to them is my advice to them, not to you.
There's been a lot about parochial schools to private schools.
See?
There's been a spillover effect to parochial schools, to private schools, to other citizens who might feel their children are not safe. What do you say to them?
Well, the threat was very specific to LA Unified School District, and we've made that well known. Now, if other learning institutions, out of an abundance of caution, want to make the same decision, then that's their decision to make. These are very high stakes. We're not making a decision about the color of a car, or what we're going to eat for dinner here. This is the safety of our children. There is no more important decision.
Well, I will give advice on that. I think it is important. People can get scared about every incident that happens, and they can get overly scared. They can stop living their lives. They can stop, going out. They can stop going to school. There are prudent moments, but there is nothing about parochial schools, private schools, nothing about universities, and any threat anywhere today. So I respect the decisions of those schools. Sometimes they will make those decisions, and again, we will support them no matter what that decision is. But I want those schools to know there is no threat that we have come across against any other schools besides LAUSD.
Mr. Mayor,
here in Los Angeles.
And we'll provide another update at 11. Thank you. Let's walk out back there, please. Let's walk out back there. Let's walk out back there, please. Thank you.
The mayor to criticize this decision. Is that in direct response to Chief Bratton hearing that they come out and said, this is an overreaction? Maybe we have the same thing to do.
That's between me and Bill.
Chief, can you tell us just what the status of the sweetness at this point?
No, I can't. That would be that's a question for Chief Zipperman, because I don't. He is coordinating that.
I'm sorry, Chief.
All right, I saw a question. The 17-year-old student we had mentioned during when we ran this press conference the first time, and let me show you. This is from the LA Times. Oof. Oh, I've got something cool. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick update here, and then I'm going to take you to some live visuals we have of the airplane hangar Donald Trump will be at tomorrow. He will be speaking here in Phoenix, Arizona, actually specifically in Mesa, and we just confirmed that Sheriff Joe will be there with him. But I wanted to address the 17-year-old that we had initially reported was killed earlier today in the mix of all of this chaos. Let's see here. Again, LATimes.com. It was a 17-year-old student that was struck and killed by a city truck Tuesday morning as he was crossing a Highland Park street not far from his charter high school. The accident occurred after the Los Angeles Unified School District closed all campuses due to a threat sent to several school board members. The teen, who an administrator said was en route to Los Angeles International Charter High School on Coleman Avenue, was crossing the street at Avenue 60 and I can never say it when I lived there, and I can't say it now, at about 7:30 a.m. when the LA City Street Services truck struck him, according to Officer Jane Kim of the Los Angeles Police Department. Tony Torres, the school's director of recruitment, said that the decision to close the school came very late, so people were still heading to school. Ugh. A Los Angeles Times analyst identified Avenue 60 and Figueroa Street as a particularly problematic intersection for pedestrians, showing that 13 people were hit, 2 fatally, from 2002 through 2013. The intersection ranked among the top 200 of more than 800 intersections identified in LA County as problematic. It also identified 4 other nearby streets. A total of 73 people were hit and 4 were killed at the 5 intersections from 2002 through 2013. Ooh. So it talks about a 28-year-old witness. He was driving in the area Tuesday morning when he saw something in the road, a black shoe and a cell phone. He's a AAA employee, and he said he saw the fire trucks and ambulance. Someone was in the street. Police had covered the body by the time he parked and stopped to watch. He said the teen's mother was near the intersection screaming, my son," and laying on the ground distraught. She tried to get closer to the body but wasn't allowed any closer. She was on the ground just crying, screaming, he said. A little ways away, sitting on the curb by the front of the parked truck, was the driver, holding his face in his hands and crying hysterically. The truck driver told authorities he did not see the teen, police said, but immediately stopped after the incident and helped the youth, who was pronounced dead by the Los Angeles Fire Department officers. The charter school's executive director rushed to the scene along with other administrators just after 8 a.m. Police were just starting to tape off the street when he got there. The administrator said he knew who the student was but did not want to release his name before the coroner confirmed his identity. The teen and his mom had taken the Gold Line train, and he had just gotten off while she continued on to work. The teen had just been accepted to film school at Cal State. The charter school is not a part of the Los Angeles Unified School District, but decided to close Tuesday morning because it was near other LA Unified schools. The teen's sister had gone to the charter school too, and her father was picking her up Tuesday after her return from a mission trip. They say that the young man that died was an awesome student. The school's roughly 240 students come from mostly low-income, working-class families, and his family was one of those stories. They were looking for something better. He was a very good student, very popular, good kid. The truck driver was a 27-year employee of the city and was being fully cooperative with investigators. The driver was very distraught about what had happened, as anyone would be. The truck that struck the young man is used to move heavy machinery but had nothing on its bed. The teen's family was with the LA mayor's crisis team, adding the police were seeking witnesses. She said there is no indication this is anything other than an accident. It's unclear who had the green light. The teen's body still lay in the street. Late Tuesday morning, an orange tarp covering it next to the body was a black backpack. People stood around studying the scene, and police examined the tires of the truck. One teen girl walked up, seeing the body, put both of her hands over her mouth and gasped. The LAPD officer on the scene said the teen had his cell phone and was wearing headphones as he walked in the intersection. The teen's grandparents talked with investigators on the street after the body had been moved, leaving a large pool of blood. An officer handed the grandfather the teen's black backpack. The bag was open next to the body earlier and had a red binder full of papers poking out. Ugh. So for those asking about that update on the 17-year-old that was struck and killed due to some of these Los Angeles schools shutting down, that was an update from the LA Times. That makes you pretty devastated. All right, let's take a look at, we're going to transition to Donald Trump. This is the airplane hangar where Donald Trump is holding his rally tomorrow in Mesa, Arizona. Sheriff Joe Arpaio is going to join him there. I can't remember who all joined him last time, but Sheriff Joe was there last time. If you'll recall, actually, let's pull that. I don't know if you'll recall, but Sheriff Joe was annoyed last time Trump was in town because Trump was late to the speech. And Sheriff Joe was like, I don't even know why I'm here, but let me find that for you and show you just Sheriff Joe's part. Phoenix, I believe, is one of the first places Donald Trump started to rally. We were one of the first cities that got him. And he's back tomorrow with a vengeance. Going to be interesting to see his behavior tonight during the GOP debate. Everybody is anticipating any kind of engagement with Ted Cruz. I don't think it'll happen. I think they're both going to try to lay low. You know what? I would probably find this faster if I Googled it versus trying to find it within YouTube. Where are you? Hello? Oh, and it's going to make me watch a commercial. Oh, sure it is. Looks like I lost my live feed. I'm eavesdropping, and I think I just overheard someone say that Arpaio is going to talk about terrorism tomorrow at Trump's event. Of course, I could just be making that up. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you
similar hair.
So after this young man exits the stage, then we see Sheriff Joe
a little bit about the Republican Party and who we are.
Pop in,
the Republican
and
Party of Maricopa County is in the Phoenix metro
this
area
is related to the fact that Sheriff Joe is also talking at the beginning of Donald Trump's rally tomorrow. So let's take a look at what Sheriff Joe said last time Donald Trump was in town, which was in...
who are officially the representatives in every neighborhood across all of Maricopa County.
Oh, dubs me. When was that? July 11th, 2015. All right, after this,
Those
we
of you who
should
are
see
not
Sheriff Joe
involved
take
with
the
party,
stage.
We invite you to become an official member of the party, and you can do so by reaching out to one of these great individuals or visiting MaricopaCountyGOP.com. Our grassroots activists and precinct committeemen are proud to represent policies passed by the voters that keep our community safe. Just a few years ago in 2006, you may remember that the voters of Arizona overwhelmingly passed 4 Republican-supported ballot initiatives that eliminated incentives for folks to come to our country illegally and break the law. 2010, with 73% of the public's approval, SB 1070 offered law enforcement the ability to assist and uphold federal law. Thanks to those efforts, property crime, automotive theft, and homicide statistics were all slashed in half. And facts are stubborn things. Meanwhile, we have policies enacted by the Maricopa County Sheriff's Department to help enforce those laws and crack down on crime. Some of those initiatives you may have heard of, like the nation's largest volunteer posse system, saving millions of taxpayer dollars every day. You may have also heard of a little thing called Tent City, developed by the Sheriff's Department in 1993 as a low-cost alternative to house lawbreakers and as a further disincentive to participate in criminal activity. There are many more examples, but I'm proud to present to you the greatest lawman on earth. The Sheriff of Maricopa County, my friend and trusted sheriff, we're blessed to call our own Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I made a few notes. I don't have much time to talk, which is going to hurt me, but I'm here for Donald Trump. First of all, is this great, the United States of America, where anyone or everyone can run for president? Number 2, we can speak out. Freedom of speech. That's very important. You know, a quirk of, I thought that Donald would be on the stage, but I'll make believe he's here because I was going to look at him. But a quirk of fate has brought him and me on the same platform. Think of that. We had a couple things in common. I won't talk much about it, but the birth certificate. Well, he investigated it, and I am, so that's common. We both want to do something about the illegal immigration problem. That's the actually, he and I were born on the same day. Flag Day, June 14. Not the same year. In fact, he could be my son. But one thing I want to thank Mr. Trump for bringing the illegal immigration problem back to the forefront. I'm not going to criticize politicians. That's not my style. But it seems every time there's an election, everybody talks about doing something. But I never see any new laws, never see any changes. It's always business as usual, unfortunately. You know, I was the regional director, not many people know this, for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration in Mexico City. And I dealt with the Mexican officials, with the Mexican people. They're all good people. On the other hand, if you violate the law, whether it's the United States of America, Mexico, or anywhere else, you should be held accountable. It's very simple. Also, we have a huge problem with drugs, not just illegal immigration coming across that border. This is interesting, and I get a little frustrated because I can't seem to get this message out, what I'm going to tell you, and very significant. We have about 8,500 people in the jails that I run. Did a survey in the last several months to see how many that are in our jail system that we turn over to ICE, Homeland Security. They keep coming back. 38% have keep coming back for all different types of crime. I got guys coming back 17, 18 times. Think of that. We had 2 deputy sheriffs killed in California. That guy was in my jails years ago, 4 times. We had a convenience store clerk killed. You heard about that. That guy was in the jails. So what's going on here? It's a big problem. It has to be alleviated one way or the other. So I know that Donald Trump is speaking out. He's getting a lot of heat. But you know, there's a silent majority out here that, and I don't want to get personal, but that's been my secret weapon since 1993. You go to the people. They're the ones that you work for. So I was going to tell Donald, I'll see him, I'll tell him. I'm a big fan of Frank Sinatra. There's a song, my favorite song. Oh, thank you. My Way. There's a part of that song that I love, and that personifies Mr. Trump. What it says, I will take the blows and do it my way. Remember that. And I know one thing, one trait that he has. He will never surrender. So I want to welcome him here. Thank you all for coming. And if everybody's taking if everybody's taking your picture, don't worry about it. Thank you very much.
And we are anticipating that and much more tomorrow when Donald Trump is back in Phoenix, Arizona. Hopefully, yeah, I don't see Sheriff Joe quote Frank Sinatra very often, so that was a special moment. That was special. But we are going to bring that to you live. You know, I also saw... actually, I'm seeing a pretty bad accident. Let me pull up the helicopter and show it to you. This is live out of Phoenix. All right, hold on. Let me pull up this video live from Phoenix. Oh. Lower the volume here, lower the helicopter sound. All I know about this is it's a possible fatal accident near Sycamore Canyon, near Four Peaks. So, near Sycamore Canyon and Four Peaks, and this is a possible fatal accident. That's pretty yucky. These are via Skyfox, our own Skyfox. Possible fatal accident here. I'm probably going to lose these visuals pretty soon. I apologize. What I did mean to bring you that I can cut to now. All right, hold on. Maricopa County Sheriffs are working an ATV accident off of Highway 87 near Sycamore Creek. No further information is available at this time. So that is not really anything more than what I told you earlier. I apologize for jumping in there like I had something. Where we're going to go now is Josh Earnest. We missed the beginning of Josh Earnest this morning because we were on that news conference in Los Angeles, California. I still haven't gotten an update on that. The last I heard was that the after-school programs were canceled 2 hours ago. Let's see. It says for latest updates, click here, 2:30 p.m., that's 1:30 our time. The safety of all children in the Los Angeles Unified School District is our #1 priority. As you have been informed, all schools were closed today. Precautionary reason in response for a threat. So no, I don't have any additional information about the Los Angeles threats, the school threats. So we were watching Josh Earnest, and we missed the first half an hour of Earnest speaking due to that Los Angeles conference, and I'm going to take you to Josh right now.
Law enforcement experts, legal experts, academics, and others come together around a set of recommendations that are then and have been shared with local law enforcement agencies across the country. Those recommendations cannot be imposed on local law enforcement agencies, but rather we can use our resources in the federal government to draw on the expertise of people all across the country and share that information with local authorities. But ultimately, it's local authorities who are responsible for deciding how best those recommendations can be implemented in their community. And I think you have another example of the important role that state and local law enforcement and first responders have in protecting communities across the country.
Officials in New York received what they're describing as essentially the same threat, quickly determined it was a hoax and decided not to close the schools down. So does the White House feel that the decision that was made by authorities in Los Angeles was appropriate? And is there any federal guidance that's given to schools about, you know, you get threats all the time, here are the ones where you need to take specific action?
Well, Josh, I'm not going to stand here at this podium and second guess the decisions that are made by local law enforcement officials in any community across the country. Ultimately, you know, these individuals are making these decisions based on information that they've received and based on their knowledge of what they believe is the best interest of the community. And obviously, they would know better than anyone else. I can tell you that as these local law enforcement agencies are making these decisions and considering these decisions, they do so with the support and assistance of federal agencies, in this case the FBI. I know that there have been conversations between law enforcement officials in Southern California and the FBI on this matter. But again, this is ultimately a decision that was made by officials in Los Angeles.
As we've been discussing Homeland Security in the wake of Paris and California, the president has talked a number of times about not giving into fear and not allowing extremists to change the way that we live our lives. I'm wondering if you can talk broadly about what advice the White House offers citizens about how to strike the balance, particularly around the holidays, between vigilance and resolve not to give in to fears of terrorism.
Well, Josh, the most important thing in the mind of the president is keeping the American people safe. And we certainly do want to encourage everyone to be vigilant. That includes the citizens of our country. We encourage them that if they see something, they should say something. That advice, of course, continues to be operative. And we encourage local law enforcement and state officials to be vigilant as they go about their basic business of protecting the American people. At the same time, the president is resolute in his refusal to allow this country and our citizens to be terrorized. And there are several things the president's doing about that. Obviously, the first is, we have engaged this aggressive campaign to counter ISIL, to degrade and ultimately destroy that organization. That's an indication, and should be an indication to you and to the American public, that the president and the federal government are cognizant of the risks and are taking appropriate steps to protect the American people. This is, after all, the president's top priority. And I think that as people go about their business and go about the kind of holiday routines that many people rightly look forward to, that people can have confidence that our law enforcement professionals that are on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, are actually doing the work that's necessary to keep us safe. And they will remain vigilant, and they continue to use every element of the power and authority of the greatest country in the world to protect our citizens. And that is part of what should give people confidence that they can go about their holiday routine.
And on one other topic, I wanted to get your reaction to this new Saudi-led coalition that is going to be working against the Islamic State. Can you describe how that's going to work, overlapping significantly with the U.S.-led coalition? And does the U.S. have any concerns about having Saudi Arabia heading that operation, fueling the kind of Sunni-Shia tensions that we've seen at play in Iraq and elsewhere in the Middle East?
Well, Josh, the first thing that's important for people to understand is that this coalition that was announced by the Saudis was not solely directed at ISIL, but rather to extremist and terrorist threats that are threatening all of the members of that coalition. So it's certainly broader than ISIL. I think the second thing is, you've heard me say on a number of occasions, as recently as yesterday, that we believe that there are additional steps and greater investments that can be made by members of our anti-ISIL coalition to fighting terrorism and speaking out, particularly when it comes to countering ISIL's online radicalization efforts. And I understand, based on the way that this was described by the Saudis yesterday, that is a central part of this particular coalition's activities. I would point out that I think the Saudis went to great lengths to also make clear that this is not a substitute or a replacement for the 65-member anti-ISIL coalition that was built and is being led by the United States of America. Saudi Arabia has made important contributions to that coalition effort, and we anticipate that they will continue to do so.
Thanks.
Okay. Julia.
Josh, a team of sanctions monitors issued a report today that said that the October 10th missile that Iran launched was in violation of the UN ban. Does this amp up the pressure for the United States to issue more sanctions on Iran, or is that would such a move be seen as potentially complicating the nuclear deal?
Julia, I believe that the reference that you're making is to a document that is leaked from the UN this morning. I'm certainly not going to get ahead of any announcements that are made by this panel of experts. I would note, however, that the United States, through our ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power, raised our concerns about this October 10th medium-range ballistic missile launch back on October 21st. And in raising those concerns, Ambassador Power described that launch as another clear violation of United Nations sanctions. So it should be quite clear that this is something that we've been concerned about for a while, and we consider this to be a serious matter that undermines regional stability. And that's precisely why the United States has raised this issue and pressed it so aggressively before the Security Council. What we also noted at the time is that a number of the individuals who were connected to that launch are already subject to significant sanctions by the United States. But I certainly wouldn't rule out additional steps if our national security officials determine that additional sanctions would be useful in countering this activity. I would say that probably the most important thing, however, that can be done is for other countries to respond to the call that the United States has repeatedly made to more intensively focus our efforts on countering Iran's ballistic missile program. And there are a variety of things that we can do that relate to intelligence sharing in terms of stopping the flow of some technology and contraband into Iran that we know is used to advance their ballistic missile program. And I would note that this does underscore the significance of the historic international agreement that was reached earlier this year that will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. There are obvious concerns that people have, legitimately, about what role these kinds of tests could have in advancing Iran's nuclear weapons program. That's why it's so important that we're able to, in a verifiable way, determine that Iran is not, in fact, developing a nuclear weapon.
So at this point in time, are you any more hesitant to issue sanctions to respond to this kind of behavior because of the fear that it would jeopardize the nuclear deal? Or are you saying that sanctions are on the table just as they always have?
Well, as we've made clear from the beginning, the international agreement to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon was a high priority, but separate from the wide range of other concerns that we had with Iran's behavior, including their ballistic missile program. Like I said, if our national security professionals, including our sanctions experts at the Treasury Department, determine that additional sanctions would be useful in countering Iran's ballistic missile program, then I'm confident that the President wouldn't stand in the way of those sanctions moving forward. I'll just note that I would anticipate that there are a number of people on Capitol Hill who are raising concerns about the development of Iran's nuclear program and suggesting that the U.S. government, specifically the Obama administration, should take steps to counter it. Well, one thing that they could do is they could actually confirm Adam Zubin, who is the financial expert at the Treasury Department, who has been blocked for more than a year by Republicans, many of whom are complaining about Iran's missile program. They are actually preventing the confirmation of the individual who would be responsible for imposing the sanctions against Iran and their ballistic missile program. So I recognize that I keep coming up to this, but I think it is an indication of how central Mr. Zubin is to our counterterrorism strategy and to our strategy to counter Iran's ballistic missile program. That is why it is inexcusable for Republicans to once again continue to block the nomination of somebody that even they admit is eminently qualified for the job. He's somebody who's served in both Democratic and Republican administrations, and they have no legitimate justification for why this financial expert is prevented from taking steps that we know would enhance the national security of the United States. I think it is an indication of just how petty their partisan agenda looks when we're talking about issues as significant as, for example, countering Iran's ballistic missile program.
Okay, well, further on Congress, with the budget deadline seeming on the horizon, or that horizon seems to be moving little by little, there's been discussions on the Hill of Republicans being able to lift the ban on crude oil exports in exchange for Democrats getting some of what they want on clean, renewable energy. Is that something, first of all, can you tell us how far that deal might be locked down, and would the White House consider a budget that includes both of those sides?
Yeah. I have seen the reporting on this that has further expanded since we discussed this issue even yesterday. However, at this point, I'm not going to weigh in on the ongoing negotiations on Capitol Hill. What I'll do is I'll just merely restate what our position on this issue has been, which is that we oppose legislation that would require the lifting of the federal ban on crude oil in the United States. And our objections are primarily procedural. This is authority that is vested in the executive branch, and we believe that we've got the authority to make the best decision. So that's our position on the issue, but I'm not going to get into sort of how this is being discussed or negotiated, or even if it's being discussed or negotiated in the context of the budget agreement. Okay. Chris.
Josh, over the weekend, Marco Rubio indicated that Meet the Press he would appoint justice of the Supreme Court who would reverse the ruling in favor of same-sex marriage. The President's support for that decision is well known, but would he use it as a litmus test for any vacancies on the court for the remaining years of administration?
Mm-hmm. Well, Chris, I think in the context particularly of his two nominees to the Supreme Court, both Justice Sotomayor and Justice Kagan, the President has been quite clear about the kind of criteria that he uses in nominating highly qualified individuals to the highest court in the land for a lifetime appointment. So he's been clear that there aren't litmus tests, but I think for insight into how the President makes those decisions, I think you can carefully consider the experience and resumes, and at this point, frankly, performance of the two justices that he's appointed.
Those two justices, they were in the majority for both the decision against the Defense of Marriage Act in 2013 and the more recent decision against the state marriage bans this year. So should we read that their appointment as a confirmation that there is a litmus test that the President considers with regard to same-sex marriage and his judicial appointees?
No, I wouldn't read it that way. I would just read it as that their approach to resolving these issues in the legal system is consistent with the way the President believes those decisions should be made by lifetime appointees to the highest court in the land.
Is the President aware of Marco Rubio's comments and has he aimed to reverse the Supreme Court decision, and does he object to it?
I don't know if he's aware of the specific comments, but if he were informed of them, I'm confident he would not be surprised. Okay. Justin.
I wanted to look back on the CR quickly. There's discussion again of kind of a short-term couple-day extension. I know the President signed one of those already. Is there a point of no return at which the President's actually going to say, no, we're not doing this anymore? I know you've said days, not weeks, but...
Yeah. There is. Hopefully we will not reach it.
Do you want to elaborate on when that is? Is it Christmas Day? Is it,
no, I mean, I think I wouldn't describe it more than I already have, which is that, Democrats and Republicans in Congress have been given ample time to reach a bipartisan budget agreement that is clearly within the best interests of our economy and consistent with the need to adequately fund both our national security and economic priorities. So, we've been clear about what they need to do. They've been given ample time to do it, and as you point out, they've even been given a few days of extra time to do it. So there's no excuse for this deal not being completed here pretty quick, and hopefully that will get done. I mean, based on the reporting from all of you, it does appear that they are on track to announce an agreement here relatively soon. That obviously would be welcome news, but we'll see.
And if they needed a couple extra days.
Yeah, and that's what we've always been clear about, that if there was an agreement reached and if there were just a couple of days that were needed for the legislative process to play itself out, that the President would agree to a short-term extension to give Congress the time they needed to pass an agreement that's already been reached.
There's also been reporting, and I know we're venturing into the territory that we just went where you don't want to comment on rumors, but
Yeah.
the repeal of the Cadillac tax will be included in the omnibus.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that you've been a little bit stronger even than, on some of these other topics. When we asked you about it last week, you said you'd strongly oppose the notion of repealing the Cadillac tax, and it would also kind of take a big blow to the President's argument that his signature healthcare achievement saves the government money. And so I'm wondering, is that kind of a cross that you're willing to die on this omnibus?
Well, I won't speculate about how it is included in the ongoing budget talks, or even how it's being included in the budget talks. our steadfast opposition to the repeal of the so-called Cadillac tax remains in effect, and that's been our position for years now. And I recognize that is a source of some irritation, even among some people who are broadly supportive of the president's agenda. But our view on this is rooted in the fact that we know that the application of the Cadillac tax would have the effect of giving employers an incentive to raise wages. That right now, that a fancy health care plan, even one that is excessively larded with benefits that in some cases people never even use, is a way for employers to offer compensation that doesn't actually benefit in full their employees. So there is an incentive that's built in here to ensure that people have access to high quality health insurance, but also giving employers an incentive to actually turn their attention to raising wages. That's a good thing, and that's been a central priority of our economic strategy since the president's first day in office. And so this isn't broadly consistent with that strategy, and broadly consistent with the strategy of the people who generally support the president's agenda. So, this is an area where we do have that is the subject of some disagreement, but it's also why I feel confident in saying to you that we continue to strongly oppose the repeal of the so-called Cadillac tax.
Last thing quickly, Secretary Kerry met with President Putin today in Russia. I know you did a preview yesterday, and so I won't ask you to repeat kind of all that stuff, but I'm wondering if there are any new updates on Syria, the Russia-Turkey relationship, or the Ukraine.
Well, as I was walking out here, I know that Secretary Kerry and President Putin were wrapping up their meeting and prepared to have a news conference in Moscow to discuss their meeting. So I direct your attention out there for the latest update on their meeting. That way I don't have to repeat all the things I said yesterday. Mary.
Back on the oil export ban, I know you said that the president opposes lifting it, but would the president veto a funding bill that lifts it?
Well, Mary, I've avoided sort of walking through all the things that we would, consider or veto or just be annoyed with, but sign anyway. In terms of the inclusion in the omnibus, our position on the export ban is pretty clear. We do not support legislation that would lift it, but we've also acknowledged that an omnibus bill is going to have to be a compromise proposal. So I'm confident that there will be things that will be included in the omnibus bill that we don't support. I don't know if the lifting of the export ban will be among them, but our position on this is pretty clear.
And on a different topic, our latest poll shows that support for Donald Trump increased since he called for a ban on Muslims. A majority of Republicans and 36% of the public overall support his proposal. How do you explain this level of support for an idea that you've said should disqualify him from being president?
Well, it certainly is a principle and a value statement that runs in direct conflict to not just the president's priorities, but also the values that are central to the founding of this nation. This nation was founded by people who were fleeing persecution and looking for a place where they could freely practice their religion. This is basic to what it means to be an American, and I can't account for the polls. There are some sophisticated and articulate individuals who work for ABC who can do the polling analysis, but all I can say from here is that it is quite clear to me that those kinds of comments and in some cases those policy positions that are shared by some of the Republican candidates for president. And it's not just Mr. Trump alone, but other people in his party who are advocating the kinds of things that stand in stark contrast to the basic founding values of this country. And that's disappointing. It certainly is divisive. It's a little cynical, but it's something that I continue to have confidence does not reflect the values of the vast majority of Americans.
And does the president plan to watch the debate tonight?
Well, Mary, as some of your colleagues know, the president has another important engagement this evening that will prevent him from spending as much time in front of the television this evening as he ordinarily would. But I know the President's very much looking forward to this evening's festivities. So, Jim.
Just to follow up on your comments about Donald Trump, was the President responding to Donald Trump and some of the things he's been talking about during his remarks today?
Yeah.
Was that a response of sorts to Trumpism?
Well, Jim, I think as I've said in the past, the comments that you heard from the President today do stand in stark contrast to the rhetoric and divisiveness that will most surely be on display on the debate stage tonight in Las Vegas on your network. But the things that the President talked about today are also firmly in line with the kind of vision for the country that the President has long given voice to. And it's because of his success in advocating and fighting for those values and articulating them in a way that has attracted the strong support of Democrats and Republicans in the context of an election in 2008 and an election in 2012. That the President's ability to be an advocate for those basic values are the reason that he's sitting in the office that he's sitting in today, and I'm standing at the podium that I'm standing at right now. This isn't it's not as if the President went out of his way to describe these values. These are the kinds of things the President has long fought for.
And apparently in the last several minutes, I don't know if this qualifies as breaking news, and perhaps it's something you expected, but Senator McCain is introducing legislation that would require DHS to review social media and public databases and foreign background checks. Is that a concept that the White House opposes, is willing to look at, might support? How would you describe that? Because as we were discussing yesterday, it just sort of, I guess it strains the capacity for the American people to understand why businesses would look at Facebook pages when they're considering hiring employees, and yet the federal government doesn't look at Facebook pages and the social media content when it comes to accepting people into the country.
Well, I guess the first thing, Jim, is I think it's just as a factual matter, that's not true. I think the Department of Homeland Security has been clear that there are a number of pilot programs that have been implemented for over a year now.
Pilot programs would not be across the board, though, right?
They wouldn't be across the board. That's why they're pilot programs. But they are part of an effort by the Department of Homeland Security to consider the best way to factor that kind of information into a background check. The Department of Homeland Security has been at the direct order of the President of the United States, has been working with the State Department to review the K-1 visa program. And they've acknowledged that part of that review is to consider ways to incorporate the use of social media vetting in their screening programs. I think what I will do is, we'll leave it to the experts to determine the best way to strengthen the security of our screening programs. That is, after all, the President's top priority. And they will be able to best assess the optimal way to incorporate the review of, for example, social media postings in that screening process.
And so, going with what you're saying, so is it already within the authority of the Department of Homeland Security to do this? In other words, you don't need legislation in order to mandate this to occur? Could the President, via an executive order, direct the Department of Homeland Security across the board to look at social media when it comes to accepting newcomers into the country, whether they be through refugee programs or other programs?
Well, I think, Jim, the other thing to keep in mind here is that if there are members of Congress that have some new ideas for work they believe the Department of Homeland Security should do, ostensibly that is paired with an increase in the kind of resources that would be necessary to fulfill those work requests. Obviously, if Senator McCain were under the view that this was important enough for him to pass legislation on, then surely he would believe that this would be important enough to fund. But I haven't looked at the entirety of his proposal, and so I'm not sure exactly how he's factored that into his proposal. But
does the President have that authority? Could he tell the Department of Homeland Security, look at social media?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm not sure why any specific legislation would be required to take a step like that.
And it's, I guess it's my understanding also that within any moment now, or any day now, we're going to get new guidelines from the Department of Homeland Security in terms of a new terror alert system or
Hello, Kinsey here. That's all I have of Earnest. And I know a lot of you are watching the debate, cheating on me with this debate. It's understandable. I understand. My feelings aren't hurt that much. It's also 5 o'clock, so I'm going to get ready to go. But I want to know your feelings on the debate. We've been talking about it a little in the chat, and I'm not going to be able to watch because I'm going to be driving home. Actually, I don't even think I'm actually going to be driving. I think I'm going to be sitting in traffic. But I want to know what your thoughts are on the debate. So tweet them to me since we won't have the chat room. There's my Twitter handle on the screen. In hearts. Because I wanted the screen to match my sweater. Tweet me your thoughts on the debate live as it's happening. I want to know what you're thinking, especially when it comes to Donald Trump, who's going to be in Phoenix tomorrow. We're going to be covering that for you. We'll have live video. We will have we'll have people actually there at the venue in Mesa at the airplane hangar. So we're going to have a lot of coverage of Trump tomorrow. So if you're a fan of him, come back. We can't wait to see you then. I'm going to go ahead and sit in traffic for the next hour of my life. Listen to some jazz, maybe to cool down from an intense day. The jazz thing is a lie, but I am going to go sit in traffic and tweet me. I look forward to talking to you on the interweb. Thanks for spending your entire day with me. This was special. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm afternoon shift tomorrow, I think, unless someone else calls in.